welcome to a fairly historic edition of Smith and Hesson, because this is the first one we've done where Mike Hesson is actually on New Zealand soil, albeit still in quarantine at a prestigious hotel somewhere in Auckland, which we won't disclose. But welcome home, Mike. I suppose you still feel quite a long way from Dunedin.
Yeah, thanks, Smithy. Certainly nice to breathe in some fresh air and feel like you're at home. But yeah, you do. You're still a plane ride away from home, and looking forward to seeing the family in a week's time.
Well, this also coincides, of course, with the start of the cricket season down under, I call it, which includes New Zealand, Australia, and of course South Africa. 3 important series about to start there. Let's start at home, Mike, with the Blackcaps against the West Indies, starting on Friday night at Eden Park. And that's a T20 match. New Zealand side without Boult and without Williamson, they're 2 true world-class T20 players. So from the outset, not quite the complete squad.
No, look, the Blackcaps won't be as strong as they would be with Boult and Williamson, but it does provide opportunity with the World Cup, not that far away. So, often you do have to rest players. Often the T20 format appears to be the one where it's easiest to do so. And obviously with the test matches around the corner. So I think New Zealand got plenty of depth in that T20 squad, or at least enough to challenge some players over the coming week, just to see how good they are against what I think will be a very good West Indian side.
Let's look at that New Zealand squad. Also, I think it's important to note that in that selection, they're going to release Southey, who's captain, Jamieson and Taylor for the third of those T20s to go back and start training with the test squad. Now, is that an indication that they're rating the tests more important than the T20s, bearing in mind T20 World Cups, etc., are not that far away?
Look, I think it does, and I think from the playing point of view, Test cricket has always been ranked the highest, so I don't think that will ever be compromised. Well, certainly not in the short term anyway. I still think New Zealand aren't quite sure what their best side is heading to India for this World Cup. So I guess it does present some opportunities for the selectors to try a few, especially in the first 3 games.
Colin Munro has decided that he's going to play the Big Bash instead for the Perth Scorchers this year. I guess that's quite a lucrative deal for him. He indicated quite some time ago that was the direction he was heading anyway. But would this mean that this is the end for Colin Munro in New Zealand colours?
I'm not so sure. I think with the fact he's got 14 games sort of on prime time TV, which the New Zealand selectors will be watching also. Obviously the competition is not international, but the Big Bash League is a decent standard of cricket, so he will be challenged over there. If he was to put up big numbers over there, then it would be hard to forget about him. But give a sucker an even break, and obviously Devon Conway, I think Tim Seifert and Glenn Phillips will get opportunities over these coming 3 games or the coming summer. And it's up to 2 of those 3 to grab it. And if then, I think it'll be harder for Colin to get himself back in the frame.
Devon Conway would be one of the most talked about cricketers in New Zealand without even playing for New Zealand so far. He now qualifies, of course. This will be his first series. They have opted to play him just so far in the T20s and leave him out of the test squad, perhaps ease him in there, but we don't know what he's going to be like at international level. He's unproven. But where do you bat him? People are saying, do they play him? I say, yes, of course they play him. Where do they bat him? Does he slot in for Munro, or do they push Seifert up to bat with Guptill? How do you do that batting order? Because you've got Taylor there as your safety valve, and I look at that side, and Conway, Guptill, Phillips, I suppose, and Seifert, Taylor fight out those top 4 or 5 places, and then you've got your all-rounders. I suppose you've got to look at Neesham, and you look also at Daryl Mitchell, who's been included for the T20s, and then you get your Santner Sodhi, all capable batsmen, of course. We know that. How do you go your mix? This is before Friday night.
Oh, look, personally, I like the left-right at the top, and I think Devon Conway's showed enough ability at the top of the order. He's technically a very sound player, albeit it's been in domestic cricket. But even when he's played against the best bowlers, the international bowlers, he's done well. So I would like to see him at the top of the order. I think that provides that left-right combination with Guptill. And then it's the keeper at number 3. So Seifert and Phillips will be battling that out. I think Seifert takes that in terms of his opportunities. I think he's slightly better with the gloves. And from a batting point of view, the selectors look like they're looking at giving him some consistent opportunities over this series. When Taylor disappears, maybe Phillips might come back in the mix. I actually think Daryl Mitchell will bat at 4. I think they need to mix up the types of players. Daryl Mitchell's a power player. So if they've got the likes of Seifert at 3, Daryl Mitchell at 4, and then they've got Ross, you talk about being the safety valve, but that player with that experience, likely Neesham, another left-hander at 6, I would think. He provides another option. Then you've got sort of your Jamison, Satner, I think at 7 and 8, and then Southey and a couple of bowlers to follow. So, look, I think it's a sound squad, and I think there's enough power in that mix as well.
What makes the West Indies dangerous from your point of view? Sometimes they come here, their record is not flash. It's almost, to me, going way back to the 80s. It's a mood thing for the West Indies. If they're in the mood, look out. If they're not in the mood, they've had some COVID issues where they got themselves into a spot of bother there. That was a negative. I just wonder, from your point of view, personnel-wise, what makes them dangerous? Because for me, sitting here right now, Blackcaps warm favourites.
Look, I think they'll be favourites in New Zealand conditions, but for me, Kieran Pollard is the one that makes West Indies strong, not just from his batting and power point of view, but from his captaincy. He's a strong leader. He won't from his players the love that they go through. You know, often West Indies sides they can get a negative role, and the Blackcaps can start to to dominate. I think that Eden Park, they might struggle a little bit at the start with that steep bounce. That will be a challenge for them, but I think if they can get through that, they've got loads of power in that batting order. Nicholas Pooran for me, Hetmeyer, but Pooran, a lot of left-handers have done well over here, been done well at Eden Park. Nicholas Pooran, I think, is a proper player, and I think he'll be someone that we talk about for years to come. Hetmeyer against spin is dangerous, and from a bowling point of view, they've got pace, they've got a decent leg spinner, and Walsh. You know, they've got enough variety, but for me, Kieran Pollard, I think, will make a difference this series.
Certainly truly a world-class T20 player and a real superstar in the IPL as well. So that's New Zealand against the West Indies. That's on Friday night. Across the Tasman at the same time, and this is the one we're showing here on Sky Sport 52. I think it's the hottest ticket of the summer. It's India against Australia. For me, I'll be glued to a lot of that cricket because the quality of the two sides is like a magnet to me. I mean, they're just the two best sides, man for man, I think, in the world at the moment. India do have Virat Kohli in the white form of the game. Of course, it's been well publicised. He's going to play just the one test match. But I look at the makeup of, and I'm not going to go through the whole lot for you, Mike, because you know them so well, but I've given KL Rahul, he has really developed into a strong player on that side with the gloves, and now, of course, the vice-captain. Shikhar Dhawan, Gill, you know a lot about Iyer. We saw him here last year. You raved about his qualities. And then you go to the bowling side of things with Bumrah, Mohammad Shani, Saini, Chahal, Jadeja, the all-rounder. Wow, what a power-packed Indian side. They haven't pulled any punches taking guys away, apart from Rohit Sharma, who will be back later.
As you said, hot property. Any side, any country around the world, as a cricket fan, you just want to turn up and watch them play. And we know how tough Australia are in their own conditions. So I can't wait to watch that series on Sky Sport in the coming months. But even the first game, just setting that tone. For me, the player I'm really interested in seeing is someone who's going to bat at the top of the order, which I think will be Mayank Agarwal. He performed very well in the Test series in Australia. Struggled a little bit when he came to New Zealand last year, but had a fantastic IPL at the top of the order. And I think that with Shikhar Dhawan, I think they're looking for someone to open because they're really keen on KL Rahul batting at 5 and sort of owning those middle overs. So I think it'll be a slightly different mix, but Mayank will come out. He will look to attack the new ball, probably more so even so than Rohit Sharma. Doesn't have the volume of runs behind him, but I think he's a high-quality player. And as you said, that bowling attack, no matter what they go with, will be mouth-watering.
Will they bounce Steve Smith? I mean, everyone else in the world has had a crack and it's worked pretty well.
Oh, I think Shami will. I think Shami's short and skiddy. I mean, we saw Neil Wagner maybe through variation and pace at times, but that skiddy bounce, Mohammad Shami is the same. He's perhaps a little bit quicker, but he's quite short. He bowls that skiddy bouncer. He's tough to get out of the way. And I'm pretty sure over the summer we'll see Mohamed Shami hit Steve Smith on the head at least a couple of times.
However, I throw back at you. India's top order is phenomenal. I throw Aaron Finch back at you, the captain, David Warner, Steve Smith, and Marnus Labuschagne. That's pretty good to take them on anyway, I think, up front.
Well, it's the best, to be fair, at the moment. I mean, you could put England in that category as well in terms of their top order, but I think, that top four, they're a real variety of talent. You talk about Finch and Warner. Finch is more a back foot player, looks to hit the ball square, does have power down the ground if they look to throw it up there. Warner's a bit more round the ground. And Smith and Labuschagne are sort of clones, probably even has more ability to score all the way around the clock. So he's developing into an outstanding one-day player. So, I mean, look, I'll tell you what, I'll be tuned in at 4 o'clock on Friday. There's no doubt about that.
I can tell you right here and now, apart from 2,000 tickets, this is early this morning, apart from 2,000 tickets in Sydney on Friday night, the first 4 games in that battle between India and Australia are completely sold out. So that's the level of interest. And just imagine the atmosphere we're going to have coming in on Channel 52. I can't wait for either, Mike. I'll be perhaps with ale in hand somewhere, definitely, but I'll be watching those first few overs because I think it's going to set the tone for a magnificent summer. Meanwhile, just to finish off the third series, and that's on Sky Sport Channel 52 as well, early Saturday morning. 3 T20s, 3 one-day internationals. England against South Africa, Morgan against the Cock. Now, this is an interesting thing for me because of the administration, the effect that COVID has had in South Africa on their sport in particular. We've seen it with the Springboks pulling out of a series. Now, this is at home, admittedly, and this is an administration now run by Graham Smith, basically, and Mark Boucher, of course, is the coach. But this is an administration I look at and I think, man, do they need a positive summer? Really, do they need a positive summer?
Yeah, they certainly do. And obviously there's been far too much government interference over there as well. And that's marred, obviously, the build up to this season. So, I mean, Graham Smith, been fortunate enough to work with him a little bit. I think he's a good man and he's a proud South African, doing whatever he can to get South on track, as is Mark Boucher. They're a very strong side at home. We saw a glimpse earlier on in the year when England and South Africa, or England went to South Africa for this T20 series, and it was high scoring. There were scores of 200 chased down, 195, going down to the last ball. This will be a cracker series. Quinton de Kock will lead the side again. He will take on the pace of England. We've talked a lot about Archer and Wood, who have plenty of pace. De Kock's not going to sit back. He's going to take them on, especially in the power play. And that's going to just set the tone for that South African batting order. And we know that they've got plenty of good pace options. And Shamsi, from a Chinaman perspective, left arm leg spinner, he got some wickets and had some good success against England as well. So I think South Africa will be tough to beat, but I think it'll be a great series.
I look at that South African squad. There's a lot of names I do know, but there's a heck of a lot not know. Obviously, it's going to be based, the bowling is around Rabada, who was outstanding in the IPL. But they have opted, even though he's available for white ball cricket, not to use the experience of Dale Steyn, which is an interesting decision when you're bloody new players around, because he at least in the squad, but he's not even there. And they haven't really been able to get hold of AB de Villiers and say, listen, could you come back and times are tough. We need a good summer. I thought if anyone could perhaps get him back in the mix, it would be someone like a Graham Smith, who might be able to work away on him on a personal note. But that has not happened. So I look at this. The other day, they had a couple of players who tested positive for COVID in their extended squad. Both teams, as late as Thursday, are going to have to undergo full COVID testing. So it just shows you, I think it's a classic example of where the world of sport is at the moment, but it just shows you what a bit of a knife edge this whole series is. And I mentioned before, Graham Smith I'm not sure he's been thrown under the bus, but he's taken a job which I'm not sure too many sporting administrators would want at the moment.
No, I mean, he's taken it because he's passionate. And I think that's probably the only reason you would do it, because you're right, you're going to put yourself under plenty of pressure. And he's certainly seen that in the first sort of 12 to 18 months in the job. after some initial success, it was challenging. And then, as I said, it became a little bit too political. But it's amazing you put 2 or 3 good performances on the board and people start to forget about that. I think that South Africa could do with some of that experience. I'm not so sure about A.B. de Villiers, whether he's interested. I know Dale Steyn is. He hasn't played a lot of cricket, played the 3 games in the IPL. I know he's gone to the Lankan Premier League, played some cricket. I think South Africa might have thought he was a bit underdone. And I suppose when you get to the twilight of your career, unless you're regularly, it can be harder to get up to speed. So I guess they know what Dale can do come the World Cup at the end of the year. They just want to look at a few other, the likes of Ngidi, see what he can do with the new ball and whether he's a good option.
Just finally, Mike, Susie Bates, news come through. Susie Bates has to come home and have surgery and rehabilitate. One of New Zealand's key players over the years, in fact, a legendary player for New Zealand women's cricket. The Melbourne Stars are just absolutely blitzing it over there in terms of the women's Big Bash. They look like they're the hot favourites to go through and win the thing at this stage. But for Susie Bates, it's interesting because she might mind me saying this, she's no spring chicken anymore on the basis she's been around so long. So we can only really wish her well, because without Susie Bates, New Zealand women's cricket team just doesn't look complete and hasn't for quite some time.
And she's been absolutely critical for the White Ferns for a number of years. She's the person that holds that top order together, huge amount of runs, but also that experience trying to introduce younger players. It's difficult for Susie because obviously she had that injury prior to the BBL, went over there and then re-injured it. So clearly it is going to need an operation. She's a formidable player. She's a great cap around the group. And she's led the side in so many games in the White Ferns, and she'll be sorely missed. There's no doubt about that. It's one area that, the women's game in New Zealand is depth. It's really hard to get, and that's why you want those experienced players around you to try and help develop the younger ones. Sophie Devine's been in amazing form, hasn't she? I think the Perth Scorchers, they finished 4th, but her side's certainly going to have a real good chance at winning that. And I think probably the thing that amazed me the most is that the Sydney Sixers, with the likes of Alyssa Healy, actually missed out on the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row, and they sort of had that star-studded side. So it's certainly showing that in the women's game, the BBL is certainly starting to develop, and there's a whole heap more stars starting to come out, including many from New Zealand.
Exciting times, Mike. Cricket really begins in earnest in a few days' time. So we'll leave it at that. Catch up with the next week, and we'll just see how the early stages of these competitions have worked out and who gets the early dominance. So enjoy cell block, whatever you're in at the moment, and it won't be too far away, mate. You'll be able to have a nice cold Spates at home.
Thank you, Smithy. I very much look forward to it.
Good on you, boy. Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Mate.